I'd like someone to come and make like a sociological documentary about the valleys, because I think you literally have endless material to go over, because you've got literally micro cultures in each fucking valley, and then you have the overarching culture that runs between the valleys itself, and then you have the culture of being from South Wales that goes through them, and then the culture of just being generally Welsh. There's so many, there's so many different things overlapping. Like, if someone looked up the valleys, well, you didn't even know this, and you were from originally South Wales, Barry, admittedly, which is more England than Wales, but...
What? How's it not England?
I think, honestly, you know your family.
I'm offended.
The higher class you are in Barry, the more English you are. And I think it's a leftover from the mining days,
No, you're not.
when the people who were like the managers and supervisors were all English people who'd moved over,
Yeah, but-
because they were the ones who had the education to do those
Yeah,
jobs.
but this is really irritating because my great-grandparents were army people, right?
Yeah.
Low ranking. And my family has always been working class. My nana was a nurse, like...
Yeah, but they have this accent that is
Yeah.
very English. They have the middle class accent for Barry, which is English.
Which is... No, but I think that comes from my great-grandfather
Okay.
is English.
But that wouldn't affect every other family member.
Yeah, but he's
To
my
this
granddad's
degree.
dad,
Yeah?
so...
My granddad's dad was French, and yet none of us have French accents.
Yeah, but the English accent is the British accent, but, like... Because it's not like a Manchester accent or a Nottingham accent
No,
or
but
a
I think it does
London
have...
accent or
I
Bristol
think,
accent.
like, your family are
mean,
very into, like... They're very active in the community. They're very hands-on, and they're really... You know, like, your family's name is well known throughout Barry, you know? I think that's a good thing as well, you know?
Yeah, I think it's something where my granddad was
Yeah. Your
raised-
granddad's proper active in the community as well.
Yeah, and he was the one with the English father.
Yeah.
So,
But
he
then
had an
you-
English father, and then the kind of...
Your granddad is the one with the super Welsh accent, though. And, like, the voice you could literally just lie down and listen to for days and fall asleep. He has, like, the proper, deep, kind of Welsh voice that he should be reading for audiobooks and crap like that, you know? He really does have that voice. Where it's your nan who has a strong English accent, and your aunties, your mum, your dad.
Yeah, my mum and my dad, it kind of makes sense because they moved abroad and you lose it a bit there, but I don't know. Yeah, I get what you mean, it's strange.
I'd like to see a good deconstruction of it, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, with the valleys, like, you didn't know about the car culture in the valleys before you were, like, dropped in it head first, you know?
Mm.
And most people who hear the idea that... Okay, so for those who don't know, the valleys in South Wales is quite a large area of literal valleys that were, like, carved out in the last ice age by glaciers that moved through the area, going from the Brecon Beacons down. So...
They're like a cluster of little towns.
Yeah, so
within
almost every valley has its own town in it, because during the Industrial Revolution, the valleys was mass populated by immigration from all over the place, because there was so much coal there to be mined. So the valleys in South Wales got super populated, all the kind of area it is, and all these different people mixed, and, you know, really good little melting pot going on. Anyway, after the first, like, the big initial bit of, the initial wave of immigration, that kind of died down, the mining industry continued up until about the 80s, when you had the collapse, where the mines got, basically coal just got uncut, and the mines all started to close, and then you've got today where there really aren't any mines in the valleys anymore. So, you end up in this situation where all these different towns have their own little, they're almost like islands, connected by roads, where everyone talks about every other town like it's miles and miles away,
Like,
when they're literally just over a
I
hill.
think a good example is we live in Elliotstown, and there's a house which is Lord Eliot's house, and Lord Eliot owned the local mine,
Yeah.
owned a colliery. Colliery, is it?
Yeah.
Mining colliery?
And he owned
So-
the tenancy of the houses in that
Yeah,
area.
and he owned all the houses, so we had like Lord Eliot, and I mean literally, you can throw a stone, and like we're on the border of a place called Phillipstown. You would never guess it was two different towns.
Yeah.
It's really like they're so little. And Phillipstown was owned by probably someone called Lord Philip, with a different coloring. And like to this day, it's like they're right there with the same time, but we're not. It's Elliot's and Phillips.
Yeah, and you can hear it in people's speech when they talk about like people they don't like. It's like, oh, but you know what they're like, they're from Phillipstown.
It's like 2 houses over. You're like,
Yeah, it's just straight away. Are you fucking kidding me? But it goes beyond that, where you have the entire same sort of mentality, but with, imagine it then extended from like small town to small town. So I'm from Blackwood, which originally, Blackwood is kind of like the hub for our part of the valleys. It's where most of the things are. And it's where a lot of different people live, and it's got like the most direct...
Supermarket.
Yeah, there was a supermarket. There's a lot more there now, to be fair, but at the time when I was a kid there was a supermarket there and a high street that was relatively big. And the main thing though, it was connected the most directly to Newport and Cardiff, which are like the 2 biggest cities to South Wales, and I think Swansea as well. So when I was growing up, I didn't really click to any of this, and then when I started going to school, I started to hear about like all these other towns, like let me see, Abercorn, fucking
Bargoed.
yeah,
Aberbargoed.
yeah, my mind has gone blank now, which is really frustrating. Crumlin, you know, lots of different places where they really weren't that far away, but the way people talked about them, it was like they were aliens, and they were just, everyone would describe everyone from anywhere else as rough as well, and they were all pretty much exactly the same on the economic ladder, you know. But something that's, anyway, my point though was that something that came up from this was that because public transport in the valleys is a mess,
It's diabolical.
it's crap, and so because as well the mining industry and everything ran away, you had to go elsewhere to get work. So what ended up developing was a really quite rampant car culture. So everyone owns a car.
Or a road penis.
A road penis.
A road penis.
A road penis.
A road penis is the people who live in really shitty housing.
Yeah, and then they have
Because
like
they're
a
really
really
poor,
good
and
car.
they put 90% of their income into
Yeah.
their car. It's called a road penis.
Wow, fair enough.
They're compensating.
Couldn't it be like a road vagina though?
I don't know, because you get the pink cars with the eyelashes.
But no, but like my sister Elizabeth and Stephanie both had really good cars
They
that
can
they
have a
spent a fuckload of money on.
I mean, like, it's like saying, like, oh, you've got balls. You don't say you've got ovaries. Women can have balls too.
I think it wouldn't be a bad thing if they were like, you got ovaries. Although balls were a bit more punchy, I guess. Anyway,
And so is a penis, is a penetrating.
what you're doing with your hand right now is starting to freak me out. Anyway, so you end up with a situation where everyone has a car. If you are 18, well, let's be honest, 17, you own a car. And people start putting in money into their car, not for any practical reason, but as a status symbol, if anything else. The way it looks, the way it runs, how loud the fucking engine is, the best sound system, all this different stuff starts going into it, and you get a situation where you are judged by your peers by the quality of your car. Now, I stayed out of that, but my sisters didn't. Now, I have 3 sisters, but the main one we're going to focus on is my sister Elizabeth, and I also have a cousin called Stephanie, and they were both really quite embroiled in the car culture, where they would go to, like, again, the local supermarket at night into the car park, and you wouldn't believe it, literally the entire car park at like 12 o'clock at night would be full of cars. All of them blaring music out, all of them running their engines and revving them and just talking. And then they would race as well through the valleys at night, to the point where in certain areas they've had to start like cracking down on it. Like in Blackwood, they've actually closed the high street on certain nights so that they would go somewhere else, because the cars are so, they've got like these stupid exhausts on them that make them super loud. And yeah, they're going up and down the high street, and it's just, you know, annoying for people. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, you know, car culture in the valleys. Do you have any comments on car culture in the valleys?
I'm trying to remember, I think, when I first came here, I think it might have been your sister's partner. And what do you call it? So I just kind of come to the valleys and
I mean Pedro.
yeah, I mean Pedro.
Yeah, Pedro's car
I
was
think
awesome.
it might be Pedro. Yeah, but Pedro had an awesome car. It was really nice. I don't like cars. I don't
It was like
but you
fucking
could
light
tell.
speed where you could feel your back getting buried into the
Yeah.
seat when he drove.
But I remember I think I had a couple lifts off him or something, and he had one of those exhausts.
Mm.
And I think I made a comment like, I heard this like noise come from his exhaust. We were in my dad's car park. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, shit. I'm like, oh, is this supposed to be doing that? I was quite concerned, you know. He's got this, and he said, yeah, it's the exhaust. And I was like, oh, sorry. I never heard it sound like that. Like, you know, and he's like, oh no, it's something you put on. It's something I put on the. It's an add-on to the exhaust. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a thing. I'm like, oh, so what does it do?
It
And
makes
I thought
the sound.
it makes like I thought it did something else. Like, oh, you know, it makes you know, so you can't feel, you know, the vibrations in the road as much. Or I don't know. I thought it did something, and the noise was a byproduct that you had to put up with. But no, it really just. I felt so rude.
Yeah.
But it was like, like why would you put something that like I couldn't understand it. And then it was kind of awkward. Like, oh, okay, cool. It was also terrifying. Yeah, this lift. I think we went to get hair dye. Hi McDonald's, and I think it was that time. And I had this lift, and it was both exhilarating and terrifying being in that car.
I mean, that was.
Ooh,
I
but that was my
remember.
first experience of it.
I can still remember. I went out drinking with one of my friends. It was someone's birthday party. I can't quite remember. But we were kind of stuck for a lift back because we were relying on there being taxis available. In, you know, stupid us.
Alternative transport. What?
Friday night, 12, you know, like 2 in the morning, and we assumed there'd be taxis running. I think they were, it's just they were like all out,
Yeah,
kind of
that's
thing.
the problem.
But we ended up calling for a lift, and my sister's partner, Pedro, was the only one available at the time. You know, good on him. He came to get us. And I just have this bizarre memory of looking out the window and just seeing lights pass, but like to the point where, you know, when you watch like 80s movies and they're doing like drug trips, where the light is just a line, there's just loads of lines of light going past the window. It was like that. I had no drugs. I hadn't even drunk that much, but I just have this vivid memory of these lights just like blaring past. It was bizarre.
I think if I played a Pedro, because I think it's the fact that he always comes. He's one of those people who do.
Oh, yeah,
do
he's
lift all
there
the
when you
time.
need him, so.
He's like really lovely.
Yeah.
And I think if I had to, because I really do not like road speed. I grew up somewhere without cars. This is not a thing for me. I
Yeah.
have no desire to go that fast. But I think if I did have to go that fast, I would trust Pedro over most. As you know, I'd
Yeah.
probably pick Pedro out. Someone said to me, okay, you need to drive, say for example, 100 miles an hour. With like.
Well, the bomb will go off.
Yeah, pick your driver. I'd probably pick Pedro.
See, I think I would too, but then I think about it, and he's a bit out of practice
Sorry.
now, he's a dad.
Yeah, and yeah, I thought that was really sweet. I think when he had a kid, when he had his kid and he sold his car, downgraded.
Oh yeah.
I think he downgraded while Rachel was pregnant, and then downgraded again. I don't know, there was 2 steps, but
Yeah. So yeah, like, I think in some ways even I've been affected by it, even though I don't really obsess over my car, and I don't really have, I don't know, what you call it, car pride.
I don't think you can obsess with your car as well because you don't know anything about cars for a driver.
Yeah.
It's so limited. It's unreal. Changing oil. Ask your dad.
Well, I think, you know,
Even though you
the
probably
dad
can't.
line is probably the only thing that stopped me from dying of starvation at this point when someone breaks. So yeah. But I think in some ways I've been affected by it. Like, I enjoy driving through the valleys maybe a little bit quicker than I should without putting a number out there. And I also like, you know, loud music while I'm doing so. Better music than most people who drive through the valleys, admittedly.
Oh, can I mention my favourite boy racer?
You have a favourite boy racer?
I do.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, no, first of all, I want to say, yeah, I think the difference is like, you're not so into like the racing at night thing. It's more we like to go driving in the day.
I enjoy driving
scenically.
generally.
And yeah, but we do play the music. But yeah, so I had a favourite boy racer. Do you remember this guy? We used to live in a flat, 2nd floor,
Oh.
and it overlooked like a road junction. Basically, one
Yes.
of those nightmares on the road where everyone is stuck in traffic all the time, constantly. And there was this boy racer there. Did we even use the term boy racer in this so far?
I don't know.
No, they're
'Cause
called boy
I don't think boy races really work because girls do it too in just as much numbers.
Yeah, but it's weird. Yeah, it's a girl thing as well, but they call them boy racers. But anyway, so there's this guy. He had, I think it was a convertible, was in the summer. Yeah, it was convertible, and he's there, and what is it? He's really buff because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like clearly bodybuilding.
Yeah.
In this like white tank.
He never used to be that when I was younger. That's a recent addition.
Yeah, with like, so you have to look like quite buff
Yeah.
in your car, you know, and he did just like in this like white vest.
Wife beater. Is what I was
White
saying.
beater, yeah. I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, white beater. I don't know how else to describe it, the kind of look.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But our kind of person.
Not like our kind of person. And yeah, he had this convertible that was really, really expensive, and he clearly, like, if
I
you look
can't
at the house
remember
and the job
the
and
name
the
of
car,
the
they don't
car.
match.
I knew the name of the car, and now I'm trying to think of it.
about
I
it.
can't remember it. This is what happens to me when I'm ill.
And he would race and he'd blare the music, right?
Because
Just like
the
everybody
type
else.
of car is important for
Yeah,
this
the type
story.
of car is important
Which
for
is
this
why I'm like getting pissed off at myself.
For me, it's just like you think of the name of the car, and for me, because I know nothing about cars at all, brands name, nothing. But every now and then, you know, when you look at a car, you can be a complete car newbie, but you look at a car and you know that car is really expensive.
Yeah.
You just know from the outside and shit like that. But yeah, he would come to this traffic light and he'd be stuck there, and we could hear him and see him from outside our living room window, and he would be blasting The Cure.
Yeah.
And the Smiths and the Doors, I think, at one point in the Cranberries, and you're like, what? It's just like the most awesome fly racer ever.
It
It's
didn't
such
really.
good taste in
I will
music.
be honest, it didn't really
Guns
hit.
N' Roses as
It's
well,
not
I think I
Guns N'
heard.
Roses, fair enough, but The Cure really didn't have the punch you
But that
need
was
for
what was
those speakers.
such a juxtaposition to everything. You looked at him in his car and just what he was doing, and then you have like Robert Smith.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I really
make any
can't
sense?
remember the name of the car, but the best part of this was the fact that I'm gonna kick myself later because I will remember it.
It's
Maybe
definitely a road penis.
I'll put up the name like on captions on the
Yeah.
video because
Caption.
my brain just cannot remember when I'm ill. It sucks. Anyway, this kind of car, I think everyone has seen one at one point or another. It's one of the ones where they're usually blue, and they're always covered in stickers. It's like a rally car. And the first time Hannah saw one, she was like, oh, it was this guy's one as well. She was like, oh, so you know all the stickers and stuff on it? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, so is that because he couldn't afford the car on its own? And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And she said, well, you know, like a sponsorship deal where, you know, you agree to have all these adverts on your car so you can have the car cheaper. I was like, no, babe, they're meant to be there. That is part of the car. That is a thing with it. It's the people who sponsor the actual rally car.
Yeah. But it looks like, you know, when you see people who have like Domino's on their car.
But they're the people who directly work for Domino's.
No, but there are people who, like, you can get your car cheaper if you have something on it. An advert plastered on it.
I've never seen this.
Like, don't you get, if you work for Domino's and you put the Pizza Domino's sign on your roof, you actually get that attached to your car permanently.
Yeah.
Your car, don't they give you something
I think Domino's might
towards
pay
insurance,
you
or you give
more.
you a pay rise or something like that?
Yeah.
There are several different scenarios, and I can't think of any now, where having an advert on your car makes it cheaper.
But this was plastered in them.
I know, but it was one of those cars I looked at and was like, that is a fucking expensive car. And we lived in such a cheap area. It's like a really cheap area where people have factory jobs and supermarket. It's a low economic area, and this car is way too expensive for everything else. It looks like you know what it reminded me of? When I first saw it, actually, it reminded us to say, because it's the sort of thing where you would think, you know, when a car gets towed, it gets put on a lorry. And driven somewhere, like you're moving to a different country, to England. It reminds me of that. It got picked up somewhere to be moved, and the delivery guy, you know, stopped off to go to the bakery at the end of our street to get himself a pasty or something, got back on the car, fell off, and was just plonked, you know, just landed there because it just didn't belong on our street. It didn't belong on our street. I lived there. I remember we drove a Daewoo Matiz at the time, and we really struggled
to keep that running.
And we lived in a really cheap house.
Still do.
And we had minimum wage jobs, and we struggled to keep our shitty, lovely Tizzy Charter, so she was called. And this guy had the most giant red penis I'd ever seen. Parked right across. Didn't make any sense. My theory made sense.
Didn't.